Hi everybody, this is Rhobert the Rhino. So all you Rhino love slaves out there, we're going to show you what I promised, and that is card work. We have our audience here, and we also have Penn of the Penn and Teller duo, one of our black cats. This happens to be the long-haired ham one, so I guess he fits. We named him before we even knew, but this is Penn. Hi Penn. Okay, you're going to have to leave because this is the stage. Come on, move your big, come on. Rhino love slaves, I can't help it. We're going to have to get rid of the cat. Go ahead, Penn. Okay, here we go. Little Penn left behind. If I had to do one card trick, or a trick with cards as I like to put it, because I don't think that any adults think that cards are magic, it would be this, and this version of card work. There's a lot of psychological things in here. What I'd like to do is to do the effect for you, to show you my version of card work. But please go out and buy Roy Walton's manuscript. I think it's $3.50, $4. One of the best investments you'll ever make. Bang for the buck is just incredible. I'm going to show you the effect, then I will break it down for you and show you why you shouldn't be doing this unless you've got it down cold. Carolyn, the lovely and talented Carolyn, or Mrs. Wiz, is behind the camera. Say hi, Carolyn. Say hi, Carolyn.
Hi, Carolyn.
Very good. Okay. I'm going to start, and I'm going to use the layman's pattern. If I had to do one trick and prove I was a magician, this would be it. As you can see, I use my old cards to do this. That'll become painfully apparent in a minute why I use old cards to do this. Let me show you. See, they're not even from the same deck. Some are red, some are blue. It doesn't matter because I'm not going to use the whole deck. It's too confusing for me. I'm just going to use two cards, and so I don't get too confused. Let me just put the rest of them away and move my audience in here. I've got here two cards. They happen to be, well, one happens to be blue and blue. One happens to be a spot card because it has a spot on it. One happens to be what most people call face cards. More properly, this is called a court card. All cards have faces and backs, so the proper terminology for, in this case, the queen is a court card. In fact, ladies first, let me use the lady here, and I'm going to mark her in a very special way. I'm going to mark her by folding her across the short way, so she's relatively long and slender, much like myself, and I'm going to fold her with her back out, which leaves her face in. I'm going to take the ace, I'm going to fold it entirely the opposite direction so you'll be able to tell them apart, across the long way, so it's relatively short and fat, and with its face out, which obviously leaves its back in. Now, very little, if any, magic has happened at this point. I want you to see that. In fact, the magic doesn't start until, what is that, Queen of Spades. Queen of Spades? Yeah. Until you take the Ace of Hearts and slide it down inside the Queen of Spades like this. Now, watch very closely because it starts down inside. I don't know if you can see that go down inside the Queen like that. Watch close, because I don't want to have to use distraction to do this. Well, let me show you what distraction is. Distraction is one of those things that if I wanted to distract you, I would just take everything and turn it inside out. So now the queen is on the inside with its face out, and the ace is on the outside with its back up. That would be called distraction. That's not the good part. This is the part. I love this. If you tap 1-2 times where the queen is and start to push, the queen looks like she's coming out the back. Doesn't it look that way? Doesn't that look good? Okay. Looks like it there, looks like it here. The neat thing is if you kind of keep going like that, the queen will appear to be turning with her back out. Looks like it here, looks like it here. And if you look inside, you can see that's what indeed is happening. Put it back together, tap 2 times where the queen little index should be, and it starts to come out the other way, but it looks like the queen is coming out with her face out. Looks like it here, looks like it here, looks like it in there. Now this is going to get fairly monotonous if all I continue to do is to tap it twice and have the queen reverse herself inside that card. People have said, but Bob, which is a good thing, that's my name, what happens if you tap once? If you tap once, it kind of gets stuck halfway in between and it doesn't come through. So the part here by the finger, the forefinger, I remember 1 finger, 2 finger, 3 finger, 4 finger, looks like it's face out, and the part here by the thumb looks like it's back out. I've had people say, well, surely you can show me the whole card. And I've said, well, don't call me Shirley, it's kind of a male ego thing. Could you hold that there, Terrell, fast? This one looks face out, this one looks back out. I think that looks relatively confusing. And if you kind of watch, you can just keep it that way. That one will stay back out, that one will stay face out. You can have all that and figure out how it's done. Rhino Love Slaves, what did you think of that? I think that you'll find that that's very strong. I did say that the last part of that happens in the spectator's hands. It does. And usually what I do when I have the card in this position, let me get the one that I just tore here so we can connect it. When I have it in this position, this is actually, I'm having the spectator hold these cards like this with their hands. So they're grabbing one on each side so it will look like this. And in between, every move a move, my fingers are covering the slit like this while they're holding on. That's the only thing that you won't be able to see, because it's only Carol and I, and rhinos don't have thumbs, so they can't hang on to them. Let me show you how I start this. I'm even going to get down to the point where I tear the card. I use pinochle decks. Pinochle decks. Go out and get pinochle decks. And I lied. Believe it or not, a magician lied. I never use old cards. I use as new a cards as I can get so that I can go back and forth numerous times like this without the card snapping. If you use old cards, you won't even get one tight crease into it before it cracks like a saltine cracker. These cards are relatively new. They're a couple of months old, but I get 2 packs of pinochle cards, a red one and a blue one, duh, and I use that pinochle because I have spot cards and face cards in an equal number, and I always like to come out even. Blame me for being a little anal retentive. The reason I use red and blue, it happened that those just happened to come out that I had 2 blue, but normally I mix them up so that it looks random, but I try to come out most of the time with a blue and a red, a blue and a red, blue and a red, red and a blue. Occasionally it comes out. It doesn't really matter that much to me. Now, the work is put into these cards 6 months ago, but if you do it properly, the tears will not show, because you can ribbon spread the cards, you can do the tent expose, you can do a diagonal expose, and as long as you have an untorn card top and bottom, you won't see it. You can spread them the same way. And I always keep the tears, the torn half, to my right so I know exactly where those go. Let me show you how to tear the card. That's the most important thing on this, is how to tear the card so that you don't get hung up on here. You're holding the card and you put your thumbs away from you on the card, away from you. Now, when you tear, this is my left hand, this is my right, from those of you watching in Canada. I start right in the center, which is the obverse of this. Now, you'll also notice that because of my operation that I had not too long ago, and some of the effects that I'm still overcoming, my hands will shake a bit. Honest to goodness, you don't have to have your hands shake like that, and I'll try not to do it, but they're going to shake just a little bit because of the medication and because of what we call the accident many years ago. When I start to tear, I'm going to lift up with my left hand and thumb this way. I'm going to lift up as I tear from my left, and I'm going to follow this line with my thumbnails right to that center of the card. These happen to be bicycle rider back playing cards. I know that for 2 reasons. Look at little angel riding a unicycle. Think he's good. Look at the one that can ride upside down. Haha. Okay, now I've got that card torn to the center. That's going to be the second card down. The torn card will be the second card down in each case. So here's the blue, here's the torn red one, here's a solid red one, and you'll notice that I use face cards. I like that contrast. And since in a pinochle deck you have a 9, 10, and ace that are spot cards and a jack, queen, king that are court cards, they come out even for those of you who are as frugal as I am. So I get the pack out and I show them that I use my old cards. Now, this is because I'm going to tear them up. People are freaked by that, and it gives me a reason to do what I'm going to do and not have them panic and concentrate on the real magic. So I come out and I say I use my old cards to do this. If it's depending on the crowd and I want to have a little bit of fun and I work with crowd reaction, I will say something like, do any of you play cards? And today, with everybody playing poker, more than half the room will say yes. And I say, for money, for clothes, what? And I'll tell them, if anybody ever gets out a deck that looks anything like these, pick up your money, dress, and leave. And I'm only going to use 2 cards to do this, and this is the absolute truth. You notice I throw them down with this card covering the slit. You also notice that even if they break. Unless it comes to the margin on these cards, they won't even be able to tell. It's an optical thing. The human eye doesn't focus on red and blue together that well, but that's immaterial. When they're together, the way I can show that they are solid is when I pick them up, I put my thumb over the slit. Now I have this cover card on top, but I'm pinching it with my thumb. And when I turn it over, my thumb covers that, so I can show them that they're solid. I stick that back under and re-grab, showing those that they're solid, and I continue to do that. I wouldn't do it more than 2 or 3 times. It gets a little boring if you do that. I take the spot card, I place it to the side. I always use the court card to do this. It gives much better effect when it turns from one side to the other. I come out to the internal margin where the frame of the court picture takes place, and I begin to fold. And I'm pinching this very hard. I can't tell you how much pressure you have to put on here. It's a feel thing. But pinch that because you don't want this cut to spread. And if you do it a couple times, you'll notice that when you go to bend here, that cut will start to spread. So I'm pinching these to keep them together as much as anything else. It makes sense to the spectator because they've never folded a card like this. So I'm pinching hard here with my index finger and thumb of the left hand right till I come to here. Then I shift underneath and I grab back down, holding that pinch, and try to get it as straight as I can. If you look real close, you see that this has spread a little bit. Doesn't matter. The human eye isn't going to pick up a couple thousandths of an inch. You'll know it, but actually it will help on our next step here. I squeeze that down as much as I can, and then for those of you who smoke cigarettes or cigars, this will be an easy move. I have to pivot this part out. So I just do that and hold it this way for a display, showing both sides, while I use some of the pattern that I use. You notice none of the magic has happened yet. And I can use that long and slender, much like myself, which gets a laugh. Believe it or not, I go for a laugh, particularly with this guy. The next card I do, I fold it the opposite direction, and while I could lay this down, I never touch the pad with the cards from here on. It's, again, psychological. So I'm folding this card the same way and make it look difficult like you did the other one. And I try to fold this as close to the center as I can. Now, I slide this card in, like I did before, and I try to show them this. And here again, this is almost a retention of vision. I'll take it out and, again, show them the cards. When I go to put it in again, what I'm doing underneath here, let me see if I can show you this. I am pulling up right here so that this card slips underneath there. From the top, it's almost a feel thing when you get here, that you lift up with this finger on the outside like this with this finger, so that when you put this in here, you're covering, you're lifting, and this is sliding just like it was the first time when you saw that, but it's sliding to the outside. I hope that makes sense. Now what you have to do is to hold this finger right here, your ring finger, in alignment so that it doesn't pop out this way. But you're covered like this, so it won't really matter too much. But again, if you work with it, you can feel it. So from the top it looks like this. From your side it's going to be like that. Now, I talk about misdirection here so that I can fold everything inside out. So I'm going to get in here, split this card. This is the way, if you're holding on the bottom, that when you split this card, if it's a little off, it actually makes it easier. But when I go to turn it, I'm taking this finger and I'm going to show you the exposed portion. I'm grabbing these 2 layers of cards here and letting this one go and turning everything inside out like this. Okay, does that make sense? Because when I come over here and I grab this card, I'm going to be turning everything inside out so I can cover this and turning it around. Now as it comes over here, slide this down just a 1/16 of an inch past it. Slide this down about a 1/16 of an inch past, so that when you grab here tightly, you're in this position, and come here to get everything and turn it around, that this is covered from the top, and then just continue your fold. You have now manipulated the card, so inside you've got it half and half, but it's covered with the cover card. At this point, the trick is done. Now, This was a little trick that I saw John Quine when I took a magic class years ago, and that happens to be this guy's favorite move, by the way, is to be able to display the inside card. This is in Roy Walton's manuscript, you won't see this. But if you take your finger and place it underneath this card and slide it down in and lift, you're pinching 3 layers of card. These 2 layers like this, and this layer of the top card. If you pinch here, you can take your right hand, go underneath, and essentially sweep everything. I'll show you the bottom view. You're sweeping everything here. I open my fingers slightly, bend this back, and display that the king is here. They don't see that, believe it. I've never had anybody question this. Then put it together. Now, when you run this through, and it looks like it's changing to the other side, this is exactly the same move. You come over here to display that it's changed to all back. You do the same move. You sweep everything here. These 2 pieces behind your hand. Open your fingers. That open finger stuff just kills them. And they're seeing this right here, so they know that this is double. Again, it's psychological. They're showing that, and you can bend that forward. You can do this as much as you want to. I would only do it 2 or 3 times. The card won't break. You can do this 10 or 12 times before the card breaks, but it gets monotonous. Now I say, what happens if you only tap it once? This is a ruse. Trust me, the taps don't do anything. Even this guy knows that. So I come down to the center and say that it's stuck. Now this is where the Bob version started. I was displaying it like this in the other hand, and I realized that in doing this, that it kind of gets stuck halfway in between. The part here by the forefinger looks face out, the part here by the thumb looks back out. Then I have these chubby little fingers, and I can slide that card in between my fingers. I was doing it like this before I put it together and tore it like everybody else does. But I said, well, gee, I can take that out, display that card. When I say, well, people say, can you show me the whole card? And I said, well, surely I can do that, but don't call me Shirley. Then I get rid of this card. Everything here is done. Now, it's not torn. It's like this. It's the typical card warp position. But this is covered, and somebody's going to be grabbing it like this. And my fingers are going to be in between. I've never really tipped this to anyone before. I'm going to have Carolyn come up to my face, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, you have it here, and you try to get it to about the same distance from someone else's face, and you look in their eyes. You remember, they're holding here. Your fingers are in the center, all right? Now, you look in their eyes and get them looking at you. You don't have to move quickly, but you do have to move fluidly. So when you say, I always say, does this look confusing to you? Does it? And they say yes. I say, does it feel confusing? No. Good. You can keep it this way forever, and then I take my gaze out of their eyes, and I say, if you tear it in half. Now, this hand comes off. This hand comes off. They're holding here, so they're holding those cuts together. By the time that their eyes focus on that cut, you've already got your fingers here like this and are tearing down. They're holding this and they take it away. So they're left like this, and they put it back to, and they, geez, there's no way. They said, well, they don't fit. Finally, they'll open the thing up and somebody will say, well, they're back to face to front to whatever. Eventually, they'll put it together and say, oh my gosh. Now, you notice here on the tear, this is your tear that you obviously tore up. Nobody has ever, a layman, a person with money, has ever said anything except, when can I book you to do something else? I leave that with them. I've never had anyone figure it out. I've been doing this for 25 years, so this is the only time that I've tipped this to anyone. I hope you appreciate this, because the Rhino doesn't get warm and fuzzy all the time. So here we are. We're, what's the date today, Carolyn? March 5th? March 6th? 7th? No, it's not the 7th. It's March. We're in March. We're on Friday.
All's well with the world.
All's well with the world. Yeah, Carolyn said it. So Rhino Love Slaves, that's yours. Practice this, but remember, don't let that get exposed to anyone else. This is yours to use. Do not put this in a book. I already have it copyrighted in Reese's Pieces. Sorry, they're out of print right now. I may put them back in print, but it's my gift to you. Bye-bye.